There is no man feared more by international Jewry than Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin. And while the Zionist West and its lackeys at the Saudi-led Gulf Cooperation Council would have us believe that armed jihadists in Syria who are murdering innocent native civilians are lovers of democracy, Putin remains unshaken in his defense of international law. Last November, Putin sent a signal to the Zionist lapdogs by dispatching the Russian patriarch on a religious mission to Syria, where he met with both the Syrian Antiochian patriarch and Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. The message was clear. Putin, who recently announced that in the tradition of the Tsars, his foreign policy will include protecting Orthodox Christians abroad, left no doubt that any attempt to oust Assad, who is protecting all minorities in Syria, will be opposed. Putin outlined his anti-Zionist stand last week when he assembled both Orthodox Christian and moderate Islamic clergy for a clear and certain news release that he will not countenance any foreign military intervention in Syria.
At a meeting with religious leaders, Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin spoke against any foreign interference with Syria. We certainly condemn all violence wherever it comes from. You should let people determine their destiny themselves.
Now, with 3 Russian warships recently docked in Syria's port of Tartus, Putin's actions speak louder than his words. And I am certain that Talmudic Jew Senator Joseph Lieberman, who was the first senator to call for a no-fly zone over Syria and for arming the Syrian opposition, which in reality is made up of Islamic fundamentalists and foreign mercenaries, has gotten Putin's message.
We're not going to stand by and allow this Assad to slaughter his people like his father did. He's going to run the risk of having the world community come in and impose a no-fly zone. And in doing so, we're being consistent with our American values.
Oh, for sure, Lieberman. Your American values have already underpinned the massacre of scores of Libyan civilians and the decimation of a once orderly and contented Libyan civilian infrastructure. And now you want to do the same in Syria as well. Now, why is international Jewry and its shill, the United States of Israel, pursuing its habitual violent program of regime change, this time in Syria, in order to install a pro-Zionist government, I mean dictatorship, in Damascus? Because Bashar al-Assad has intensified Syria's policy of resisting Zionist imperialism ever since taking over the reins from his father, Hafez al-Assad, in 2000. That's why. Since then, Assad has grown the economy at a healthy rate of 5% a year. Since then, Syria is debt-free and will not allow any Rothschild Jewish banks. And you'll be hard-pressed to find any McDonald's or Pizza Huts in Syria. It's forbidden territory for internationalist, Zionist-funded corporations. And since then, due to Assad's independent, self-directed economic development, a program shared by all U.S. regime change targets, the Jewish globalist bankers and their corporate pawns are being thwarted from privatizing and politically Judaizing the industries and government of the sovereign nation of Syria. The Jewish-influenced U.S. State Department put forward this very same Jewish bankers' agenda when it stated last month that Syria refuses to join an increasingly interconnected global economy. The Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs, of course a Jew, Jeffrey Feltman, highlighted Jewish finance capital's plan for democracy in Syria. Read the humanitarian bombing of Syrian civilians in his recent testimony before the Zionist-led Senate Committee on Foreign Relations.
Bashar al-Assad is destroying Syria and destabilizing the region. An orderly democratic transition that removes Assad from power and restores stability is clearly in the United States' interest. It will support our goals of promoting democracy and human rights.
It's the same old lie. The Zionist West is framing the conflict in Syria as one between the lovers of democracy, led by the Free Syrian Army, and a murderous tyrant. So very, very far from the facts on the ground, as Russia and the Syrian government have been contesting all along. This has been verified by the observer mission recently sent to Syria by the Arab League, which stated in paragraph 75 of its suppressed report, and I quote, There have been incidents that include the bombing of buildings, trains carrying fuel, vehicles carrying diesel oil, and explosions targeting the police, members of the media, and fuel pipelines. Some of those attacks have been carried out by the Free Syrian Army and some by other armed opposition groups." Unquote. My friends, this is hard evidence from investigators on the ground who are witnessing against the allegations of their own Zionist puppet masters of the Arab League. Lieberman, you have been shown to be a liar. Your name should be pronounced Lieberman. Bottom line, while the Zionists plan for a greater Israel, extending from Tel Aviv to Tehran, from the Nile to the Euphrates, by fragmenting Israel's bordering nations into competing militias and warlords, Vladimir Putin remains firm and uncompromising. You can hear it all the way from Moscow to Tel Aviv, a clear and resounding "yet" flaming forth from the righteous lips of Vladimir Putin, the world's foremost and only defender against Zionism's warmongering, world-destroying, ugly designs.